Hello, movie lovers. Welcome back to SignaMovie channel. Today is all about fresh cinema experiences, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on the newest film making its mark. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into the recap of this exciting cinematic adventure. At the beginning of the film, Chani from Arrakis explains that they have long been ruled by the noble House of Harkonnen. House Harkonnen is cruel to the natives of Arrakis, but the poor natives are unable to fight House Harkonnen under Emperor Shaddam's rule. Chani also said that he was sure that the forces of House Harkonnen would one day suddenly leave Arrakis, but that the Emperor would send someone else to exploit their resources in their place. The scene then cuts to another planet called Caladan, ruled by House Atreides. Prince Paul of Atreides wakes up from a recurring dream. He has breakfast with his mother, Lady Jessica, who is also a member of an organization called the Bene Gesserit. The Bene Gesserit is a special sorority whose members have a high degree of physical and mental ability. Therefore, Jessica also has the power to manipulate people's minds. She's been training Paul in organizational discipline for a very long time. Therefore, Paul has the power to see the future and other unique powers that he has yet to discover. Paul's father, Leto, who is also the Duke of the House of Traitors, has an important meeting with the staff of Landsraad, the political organization representing all the noble houses. In the evening, everyone in Atreides greets the VIPs who have brought a message from Emperor Shaddam himself. The Emperor, who recently expelled House Harkonnen from Arrakis, wants Atreides to be Harkonnen's successor. He wants to take over the management of the spice mines of Arrakis with his army. Although Duke Leto is concerned about the situation, he follows the Emperor's orders. During the meeting, Jessica notices Gaius Helen Mohio, a member of the Bene Gesserit organization, staring at Paul. The meeting ends when Leto marks them with the ring and confirms that they will follow his orders to Arrakis. In the next scene, Atreides' army is seen preparing to depart for Arrakis. The unit also includes one of its bravest soldiers, Duncan Idaho, who is also Paul's best friend. Paul has a vision of Duncan dying in Arrakis and is worried about it. Duncan assures Paul that he will be fine and heads to the planet to prepare for Paul and his family's arrival. The next scene shows Paul and his father Leto talking about various topics. He reveals that Leto has no interest in getting rich from spices. Instead, he plans to make friends with the people of Arrakis, the so-called Fremen. Unlike the former Duke Harkonnen, I intend to treat women with respect so that they become valuable resources for Atreides. Later, Paul and his colleague Gurney Halleck practice dueling. Both feature wrist devices that create a protective layer of force around the body. Halleck fears that he will be attacked by the jealous Harkonnen. So he asks Paul to be careful when he gets to Arrakis. Elsewhere in House Harkonnen, Baron Harkonnen, former ruler of Arrakis, and his rebel nephew Robin, talk about how the last ship left Arrakis, leaving the planet to the Atreidians. Robin despises her emperor, who took her away from Arrakis and gave her to Atreides. However, he is surprised when the Baron reveals that the emperor is jealous of House Atreides' growing popularity and is actually planning to destroy House Atreides. The emperor's plan is to kill Leto and all of his men while mining spices in Arrakis. Back on Caladan, Jessica wakes Paul up and takes him to the doctor to have his vitals checked. It turns out that her precious mother, Gaius Helen Mohio, had learned of Paul's vision and that she wanted to see if he was the one they had been waiting for. She made him put his hand inside a box to test his impulse control, and he passed with great difficulty. After Mohio leaves, Jessica tells Paul that the women's group Bene Gesserit has been conducting politics in the shadows for years. They also carefully bred bloodlines to produce the only male with the potential to save Arrakis from spice exploitation. The test Paul had just taken revealed that he could be the person they were looking for, the Messiah of Arrakis. The very next day, Leto, Paul, Jessica, and their army departed for Arrakis and landed on the planet. They are welcomed by the local Fremen, who apparently believe that Paul is their savior, and they call him Muad'Dib, although Paul himself believes that it is just a superstition. Later, in his room, he learned about a type of giant sandworm discovered on Arrakis. To protect themselves from this, the Fremen walk on the sand in erratic movements. As Paul looks at the hologram, a terrifying insect emerges from the wall and attempts to kill him. However, Paul saves himself at the right moment. Investigation revealed that Harkonnen soldiers were hiding inside the wall to kill Paul. The scene switches to a fruitless encounter with Mahio, He knows about the Emperor and Baron's plan to attack Atreides, but he can't do anything about it since it's the Emperor's orders. However, she asks the Baron not to kill Jessica and Paul. The Baron woman agrees to do as she is told, but she intends to throw them both into the sand to be killed by sandworms. Back in Arrakis, a meeting is held where officials discuss plans for spice mining. It turns out that the Harkonnens have left them with damaged equipment, and they are doomed. Sometime later, Paul reunites with Duncan, who had been sent to prepare for his arrival. Duncan said he has been living in the desert with the Fremen for 4 weeks. He tells them all about their options for survival and about the community of Fremen called Sea and their leader Stilgar. Stilgar also came to see Leto. Stilgar spits on the ground, which Gurney Halleck considers an insult, but it turns out to be a sign of respect, as body water is the most precious commodity on Arrakis. Leto offers him to work with the Atreides family, but Stilgar despises him for taking the land without giving it back to the people. They parted amicably after Leto promised not to harm their community. Before leaving, Stilgar looks straight at Paul and says he looks familiar. The next day, Leto and his team inspect the spice sand used for mining. They meet Dr. Freeman and the Imperial ecologist, Leodo Keynes. She checks the integrity of Leto's still suit. The suit is designed to convert sweat and urine from a person's body into drinking water. While checking out Paul's suit, Kane said he already knows how Freeman wears a suit, even though it's his first time. This reminds them of the prophecy that their savior will know how to live their lives, even if they come from another land. Keynes also believes that Paul is right. Afterwards, everyone heads off to inspect the spice sandwich. During their tour, they witness 2 sandworms approaching a harvester mining spices. This seems to be a common problem, as porters are dispatched to lift the harvester and move it out of the reach of the worms. However, the aircraft carrier's anchor breaks, and they are unable to lift the aircraft. Her 21 crew members are inside the harvester and are about to be attacked by the worm. Thinking quickly, Leto orders everyone to move the plane closer to the device and pick up the crew. They land on the sand minutes before the worm attacks and manage to rescue the crew. However, Paul smells spice and has a vision. He still felt dizzy when he got home, and doctors concluded it was an allergy. But Paul claims he saw a Fremen girl in his vision. He also tells Jessica that she is pregnant, but Jessica rejects this. The scene then shifts to the Imperial planet, where they are preparing to attack Atreides and kill Leto and her family. They are called the Army of Sardaukar and are considered the most feared army in the known world. Back in Arrakis, the doctor brought Paul medicine for his allergies. However, Paul had no idea that the doctor was making a deal with the Baron and that the drugs would cause Paul to lose consciousness. Leto and Jessica also receive sleeping pills. Jessica accepts, but Rate does not. After a while, Sardaukar's army will attack. Leto wakes up and realizes what is happening. But before he can do anything, the doctor shoots him with an arrow, and he slowly loses consciousness. Outside, Sardaukar's army wreaks havoc, surprising the Atreides army. With twice his number and multiple weapons at his disposal, Sardaukar quickly overwhelms the Atreidians, who have been turned into ruthless ducks by the Emperor. At the same time, the doctor tells the injured Leto that the Baron has kidnapped his wife, and he has to do as he is told. The doctor then removes Leto's ring and gives it to Paul. He also inserted his poisonous molars into Leto's jaw, stating that if he bit hard enough, his teeth would release poisonous gases that would kill all humans around him. This may be the only hope to defeat the Baron. Meanwhile, Sardaukar's forces kidnap Paul and Jessica and dump them in the desert. When Paul wakes up on the plane, he finds his mother gagged and bound next to him. She can use her own powers to manipulate people into doing what she tells them. There, the two use their powers and succeed in killing the captives. Paul finds Flemset, which the doctor gave him to help him. They then flee into the middle of the desert. Meanwhile, Leto, who has lost consciousness, is brought to the Baron and stripped naked. The doctor begs the Baron to release his wife, but instead the Baron is brutally murdered. The Baron then tells Leto that his lineage ends today. Seeing no way out, Leto bites his teeth and releases a poisonous gas, killing everyone in the room, including himself, while Paul and Jessica pitch a tent with their kits elsewhere. They also find a doctor's note and Leto's ring. While staring at the ring, the two learn of Leto's death and mourn his death. The next morning, Duncan, Idaho, consults British ecologist Keynes and asks him to help him find Paul and Jessica. Returning to the Baron's palace, his soldiers enter the room after the poisonous gas dissipates. They are surprised to find the Baron stuck to the ceiling and somehow still alive. At the same time, Paul releases the bullet from Spice in the sand and begins to see visions of future crusades. He imagines killing millions of people and hyperventilates at the sight of their deaths. A worried Jessica reassures his son. After some time, he wore his father's ring and received the title of Duke of Atreides. They are soon discovered by Duncan, who kneels before Paul and calls him Duke. All three are then taken to safety by the animals. The place they stay is an old ecological station that was supposed to provide water to Arrakis. If the project had been successful, Arrakis would have become a paradise. However, before the project was completed, this spice was discovered in the sand. All attention was focused on harvesting the valuable spices, and the project was abandoned. After some time, Sardaukar army reaches the safe zone and attacks everyone. Duncan risks his life to save Jessica and Paul. Paul sees Duncan's death in a vision and yells at him to stop. However, Duncan remains true to his mission. In the end, he dies in a battle with his army. However, Jessica, Paul, and Keynes were able to escape. Jessica and Paul board a plane that can only accommodate 2 people. Meanwhile, Keynes asks them to head south to meet Fremen who will support their cause. She plans to board the plane from another station. Her mother and son fly away, but Keynes is soon captured by Sardaukar's soldiers. They are about to kill her when she hits the ground rhythmically. The noise attracts sandworms, who eat them all in one bite. Paul's plane is then pursued by 2 enemy planes. Paul sends his vehicle into a violent sandstorm, making the enemy believe they are dead. In the next scene, the Baron is seen being bathed in medicine to cure his injuries from the poisonous gas. His nephew Robin arrives and compliments his Marlon Brando impression. He also tells Leto and his bloodline that he is dead. Finally, the Baron, pleased that his enemy's house was destroyed. Paul and Jessica end up in a different desert, but are safe. They suit up and go looking for the Fremen and ask for help. Paul was learning about the Fremen life and how they walk to avoid attracting insects. They walk around all day, and Paul sees a vision of Fremen people and a girl telling him not to give up. As the 2 of them stop to rest, they suddenly heard a loud noise. Paul notices a sandworm nearby. They start running to save their lives, but the worm chases them even faster. It emerges from the sand and tries to prey on the 2, but it stops midway. Someone activated the knocker to help them. At that moment, they are surrounded by Fremen leader Stilgar and his group. It soon turns out that they were planning to kill Paul and Jessica because of the fluids in their bodies. Stilgar calls his men aside and tells them that Paul is the Messiah they'd been told about. Others do not believe in Paul and say that Paul cannot be the Messiah because he has not yet proven himself. One of them insults Jessica, calling her old and weak. She proves her mettle by taking the man hostage and taking his life into her own hands. The leader then instructs everyone to head to Tabor Island, where Paul and Jessica's fate will be decided. At that moment, a phantom girl appears in front of Paul and introduces herself as Cheney. As they prepare to leave, a freeman named Jameis insists on a duel with Paul. In Fremen tradition, all duels must end in someone's death. Paul, who has been training all his life, easily defeats Jameis, but hesitates to kill him because he has never killed anyone in his life. In the end, Paul stabs the man and wins the fight. The others then pack up the bodies and head to Siach Tabor. The movie ends with Paul seeing a man riding a giant sandworm and Cheney saying this is just the beginning. The end of the movie does that. And the movie ends here. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed this film recap and want more, subscribe now, like, and share captivating stories with your friends. Tell me which movie you'd like me to summarize next. See you soon.